Good morning, defenders. Normally, I would ask what is good, but to be perfectly honest, not much right now. You know my voice. A little bit of frustration in this one. It's the scarf. J.R. Liebert coming to you with a scarf wall behind him again for, the first time in a little bit. And that's about the only thing that makes me happy right now, if I'm being perfectly honest. Obviously, of course, other than recording with my partner in pod, one Christian Philly Philemon, who was there live in Philemonster Studios. But yeah, this morning sucks. This morning sucks because I just watched the Mamelodi Sundowns score a goal on Borussia Dortmund. The fact that we're, a couple of percentage points better than Auckland City right now, who has a goal differential of minus 16 in 2 games. Not many teams haven't scored after 2 matches. At least the Seattle Sounders did, even though they're eliminated. I don't know what there is to be good about right now, except I guess now I have something to look forward to in 4 years, 2029, when the next edition of the Club World Cup, and it might be happening in Spain, so that'll be a fun summer. I'll be there for that one if we make it. But this showing against ES Tunis, Esperance, and I really hope those 2 Esperance fans come back in the chat to come right at me and claim that receipt, because I was bullish. And all I got instead was a bunch of bull from LAFC on the pitch. Probably the most disappointed I have been in watching this club. Definitely the most disappointed I've been this season. And this day in LAFC history is going to underscore why I'm so frustrated again too. So I can't wait to get back to being frustrated. But now that I've gotten some, very little, but some of my frustration off my chest, I give you one Christian Philly Philemon.
I've said it before, and I will say it again. I am not a morning bird. I am a permanently pooped pigeon. Why a pigeon? Well, if you've ever been in New York City, then you know it's the city's unofficial mascot. I don't morph into the platinum-haired flamingo till sometime after 12 o'clock. Or if we're tailgating and somebody says, shadow clock. I'll say, though, that this morning was even tougher to wake up for, mainly because we were going to pod, or are going to pod, about a very, very disappointing LAFC performance. And not many of you know, many of you do know, actually, for that matter, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. But I didn't have these visions of grandeur coming out of the group stages. Not when you have the likes of a Chelsea and a Flamingo. And doing the research on Esperance, you figure out real quick that they're no slouches either. Tunisian champions on 34 occasions, with 19 of them coming since the year 2000, when it was the turn of the bloody century, a mentality of domination, something that we'd like to have, but we don't have a long enough history to boast about. And the one bit of mentality that we do have, myself included, and the millions, is that we can't win big games. And that's already a disadvantage mentally when playing against a team that doesn't really lose, in that of Esperance. But what I didn't imagine is that we'd go 2 games without a goal. No celebrations to be had thus far, which is why we're very much disappointed, along with many reasons. But lastly, before I turn it over to Scarf, I am here, like many of you, to exercise the emotions away and give you all a pod to commiserate. And with that being said, I will take another sip of coffee from this here Slytherin Harry Potter mug and hope to go from permanently pooped pigeon into the platinum-haired flamingo once again.
I'd have to say Slytherin kind of works for you, if I'm being honest there. I love you, buddy. But
if you've ever been to the Warner Brothers tour, any of those other things where there's a sorting hat, obviously it is beyond random, nothing that is factual, but I have never once sat underneath a sorting hat, and I've been so under it on 4 occasions. I've never gotten anything but Slytherin, and I do like the color green.
You say it's random. I think the sorting hat knows, if I'm being perfectly honest. Yeah, man, look, this Jose 6 in the chat says, en las buenas y en las malas. And that's why we're here, right? We're here because in the good times and the bad. But here's what we also get to do by being here in the good times and the bad, is we have to call LAFC out on some of the stuff that happens. It can't all just be sunshine and rainbows, because if anybody watched that match There was some sunshine being delivered in Nashville, but there were no rainbows. That's for sure. And other than Hugo Lloris, and I'll say it, I thought Olivier Giroud played pretty well. Other than those couple of guys, I don't know that I've been more disappointed in a collective effort. I know Philly and I are both feeling the same way about Denis Bouanga in this one, is that he is going to get an undue ration of garbage for this one. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But I'm just, Philly, in terms of how optimistic I was going into the match. I mean, y'all heard me on One More Sleep. I predicted 3-0. I predicted LAFC would come out guns a-blazing, that we would bring our shooting boots, and that we would do everything we needed to do to, as I said on One More Sleep, plant our flag finally in an international competition, the likes of which really, really matters. And all we did as the world was watching was drop an absolute deuce in the middle of Geodis Park. And I'm sorry to whoever their groundskeeper is that now you had to clean that up after this match, because that was what happened there for sure. We want to remind everybody, if you're not already, please follow us. I know that's such an optimistic opening. You might as well follow Defenders of the Bank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, at Defenders of the Bank, and that's Bank with a C, and on X at Defend the Bank. That's us. Philly, I'm going to get into a very quick this day in LAFC history and probably go on another tiny rant at some point. If you were watching the match, you were watching it on June 20th. And June 20th has actually been a wonderful day for LAFC in the annals of our history, especially in terms of tournaments that kind of matter and certainly matter to me. The U.S. Open Cup is like my favorite thing that we do when we haven't qualified for the, I don't know, the most important and prestigious Club World Cup on the planet. And on June 20th, 2018, LAFC defeats Sacramento Republic 3-2 in a round of 16 Open Cup match at Bank of California Stadium. It was a late goal by Latif Blessing that knocked Sacramento Republic out. So that was a fun one. And I remember that was the first time, our first ever match was against Sacramento Republic. It didn't count. It was a friendly that we won 2-0 up there. But they came down here in a match that mattered and really showed up and showed out. And unfortunately, not much until recently has gone right for that franchise since. And also on June 20th, 2019, LAFC comes back from being down 1-0. And oh, did I wish that would happen last night, to defeat San Jose at Bank of California Stadium 3-1 in the U.S. Open Cup round of 16. And these are the greatest hits, folks. Diego Rossi, Adama Diamande, and Carlos Vela all scoring by leading a comeback. And it was on a massive 8-save night for Pablo Cisniega. This day in LAFC history, Philly, really underscores the importance of why I'm so frustrated with last night's performance. Two solid performances in the U.S. Open Cup, America's version, obviously, of the FA Cup, and my personal favorite competition, as long as we're allowed to play in it. Thanks, Don Garber, for not allowing that. But I don't give two flying flautas about the cash grab that is the League's Cup. It's a BS made-up money grab concocted by Don Garber to somehow try to make the MLS seem more relevant by playing international competition while trying to fuel a BS rivalry between Liga MX and MLS that, no one cares about. So for me, it's Open Cup or it's something like this, the Club World Cup that comes along once every 4 years. And Philly, we dropped the deuce. I'm just so frustrated.
I mean, I think we could just end the pod right there. I mean, there's nothing really much to be said. I don't want to recap this thing. We could talk about moments, but you're right. Look, in all fairness, I will say this. I don't mind the League's Cup. I don't love it, but I like it when we go up against Liga MX competition that we haven't seen in the past. That's fun. When we got to play Juarez, that was different. Obviously, we beat the crap out of them, which made it even better, but it's always fun to learn about new teams. When we got to play against Rayados, that was kind of cool. So I do enjoy the League's Cup from a perspective perspective of playing against newer competition. When we're in the Leagues Cup and we play against Vancouver, that's when it gets aggravating to me because we see these chuckleheads all season long. And I say that tongue in cheek because they're chuckling all the way through the Western Conference this season. They are the best they've been since LAFC has entered the league. Now, I don't think the U.S. Open Cup is the best tournament, period. But at the very least, we should have been in to allow ourselves the opportunity to defend it. We're the champions, and the champions aren't there to defend their title. That's what I think is utterly stupid. But alas, we go on. And if there's anything the Leagues Cup has given us, is just more time at BMO Stadium with the opportunity to spend more money, yada, yada, yada. What we won't be spending more money on, though, is obviously this FIFA Club World Cup tournament. It would be pretty darn cool to catch the game against Flamengo, but I think I'm going to save my money and save myself the sheer embarrassment of getting walloped by Flamengo. You can look at it from a couple of perspectives. Flamengo is already in. They've defeated Chelsea quite candidly. They're undefeated within this tournament. Maybe they put in the backup squad to prevent any injuries from happening as they go on to the next round, which could enable us to get some type of a win. But either way, it is disappointing. The last in to this tournament, essentially the first club out. And yes, you brought up the fact that Auckland City might be the only other team that is worse than us. That's a team I think we would have a shot against. In particular, when you have 9-to-5ers that are playing, moonlighting as professional footballers. But on to this day in LAFC history, before we move on to the next topic at hand, I do want to give a shout out to LAFC's former director of match day presentation, our good buddy Al Rate. Al, if you can listen to me, or if you're listening to this, or if somebody else knows Al Rate, tell him that we love him and that I wish him a happy birthday, or I can just tell him myself after this pod and text him. Anyway, happy birthday to the great Al Rate.
Happy birthday indeed to Al Rate. Love you, buddy. Yeah, it's on my phone to text you after this. So hopefully, if you're listening out there, you're probably as pissed off as we are. I mean, Philly, all I was looking for in the first two matches was a moment, right? Just something. A moment, not a gritty result, losing 2-0 to Chelsea. But I guess, look, I'll take it. That was a moment-ish, right? That, oh, look, we stood up to these Premier League giants in Chelsea and went toe-to-toe pretty solidly. But for God's sakes, the Mamelodi Sundowns were up 1-0 against Borussia Dortmund. Now, granted, they're losing 3-1, but they have that moment. All of their supporters can look back and go, we were leading Borussia Dortmund. You got a team like Al Hilal, who is a great team, who stood toe-to-toe with Real Madrid. I mean, just so many things to look at in this tournament. If you look at the Urawa Red Diamonds, that they have had incredible support in this tournament. Scoring a goal against River Plate, their fans lost their mind. I was just looking for a moment. The Seattle Sounders, when they scored against Botafogo, or when they scored against Atletico Madrid, they've scored in both their matches. I mean, come on. We're getting moments from Inter Miami and the Seattle Sounders. We're not getting any moments from LAFC. And any moments we do get now against Flamengo. And I do kind of agree with what you're saying, Philly. I think depending on what happens, right, I think Flamengo is going to sit a lot of their guys for at least the second half, something like that. But I just think the moments that we get are going to be a little watered down in the context of we know we're out. Flamengo knows they're in for the most part. I think they're in, right?
It's an inevitability.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's get into it because it's not going to get any better.
You're telling me we're not going to play David Barrett's One Shining Moment that was written particularly for March Madness and the NCAAs?
And that's it.
We're not. Yeah. We're not playing One Shining Moment.
We're not doing that. That's for sure. Look, no better guy to lead the club, though, right, for Esperance than Maher Kanzari. We talked about it on One More Sleep. The dude was born in Tunis, Tunisia. He played for ES Tunis for quite some time. He is on his third stint managing the club, and he left their rival to come back to manage them for exactly moments like this. He managed them to the Tunisian treble, which sounds really cool when you say it out loud, the Tunisian treble. All they did was win their league by 4 points and lost 2 matches, during the entire season, winning the Tunisian Cup and the Tunisian Super Cup this year as well. That's how you get a treble. And oh, by the way, one of their best players, Philly, I'll say this at the start of this episode. Philly, you were spot on with your 2 players to watch in this one.
I'm pretty good with these things.
and I got to say, I was too. I think we were both dead on right about who I think the 4 most important players in this match were. Philly had the much bigger moments from his 2 players, although I think my player to watch, goalkeeper Bashir Ben Said, probably had the biggest moment in ES Tunis history for the Club World Cup there. Actually, they've had some good moments in the Club World Cup. Anyway,
they finished as high as 5th at one point.
Yeah, they've gotten out of the group stage every single time they've been in it.
Yes.
Good Lord. They came out in a 4-2-3-1 with Bashir Ben Said on the back, and lots of things to say about Bashir Ben Said. He was excellent in this one. Not really tested all that much, but the one time he was, kind of came up big. Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida, Mohammed Tugay, Mohammed Ben Ali, and Yassine Mariah make up the back line, and their back line was very, very good in this one. Onuche Okbelu, Khalil Gwenichi are your midfielders. Youssef Baleli, turns out it's pretty good. Abdramane Konate, Elias Mokwana, and Rodrigo Rodriguez are your 11. And I did practice all those to make sure I got it right. They did have some guys come in, but I don't care about them. So I'm going to flash it over to Philly for LAFC.
A reminder, in case you didn't catch the preview pod, this is one of the best teams in the continent of Africa. This is a team that has dominated the Tunisian football leagues. In fact, Esperance is as synonymous to the Tunisian football league as the New England Patriots were at one point to the NFL. No kidding. The amount of titles. Yes, Scarf, I'm trying to make you happy by mentioning your favorite NFL team. This is a team that has a history of dominance, a team that has a strong mentality, a team that's been in the Club World Cup on 3 occasions, finishing as high as 5th, a history of success, 100+ years of magic playing in Northern Africa. Again, one of the best teams on that continent, and clearly a team that has a good traveling support. Did you see how many people were in Geodis Park? It's not exactly a hop, skip, and a jump from Tunisia to Nashville. And I just wonder I would have loved to have seen some of these, some of the fans that we had the other day that were chiming in, would have loved to have gotten their impressions of hanging out at places like Honky Tonk and Tootsie's. I love Nash Vegas, by the way. But the mentality is that of not losing. And clearly they played like it. So I just wanted to highlight that once again for those who didn't tune into the preview pod. There's more that we've said about them. Their history of success is quite jaw-dropping in the grand scheme of things. And while the Tunisian league might not be as glorious as some of the other leagues that we all follow, mentality is really what propels somebody in one of these types of matches, and they clearly had the stronger mentality. Hugo Lloris starting in between the sticks for us at LAFC, who actually played a very good game. Him, along with his sidekick, the post, prevented us from losing this game in what could have been an even more embarrassing fashion than 1-0. Ryan Hollingshead, Eddie Segura, Aaron Long, Sergi Palencia would make out your 3 in the back line. Marky Delgado, Igor Jesus, Timothy Tillman in the midfield. Up top, Denis Bouanga, Olivier Giroud getting the start, and David Martinez. Okay, Giroud didn't get the start against Chelsea. That's fine. He gets the start against Esperance. You think there might be some magic in the tank for the French footballing sensation. As far as players coming off the bench are concerned, Dilro's son would be one of them. Frankie Amaya, Marlon Yayaboa, Jeremy Abobasi, and that is all. Scarf. This game could have been far more lopsided than 1-0. It doesn't indicate or underscores how badly we truly played. And for those that are upset that Hugo did allow that one goal to get megged by him, by Baleli, that certainly doesn't show. If that's the only thing you tuned into, you clearly didn't see how he had to stand on his head on a number of occasions to really save our asses in the grand scheme of things.
Philly, we got tested in the 5th minute against Chelsea, and LAFC said, "Hold my beer. We can make it
That's
earlier."
funny, by the way.
we can make it earlier in this one. How's that? We can get ourselves tested even earlier. How about 2 times in the first 10 minutes, LAFC should legitimately be down 2-0 in this game.
Oh, yeah.
10 minutes in, 2 awful turnovers, the first of which playing as lazily out of the back in your own third as I have ever seen LAFC play. I don't know what the hell we were thinking, just kind of tip-tapping the ball to each other back and forth when you have a Tunisian team that is running a high press the way that they did. And all the turnover did, by the way, result in their best player, a dude with, 34 goal contributions in 35 matches for Esperance this season. 1v1 with Hugo, and I don't know how Hugo gets to this ball. Dude is 8 yards away from Hugo Lloris on this shot, and Hugo with the reaction was unbelievable, but LAFC got blitzed. I said in our Chelsea One More Sleep that we had to survive the first 15 minutes. Philly, we're damn lucky we survived the first 10 minutes against Esperance. That high press was unbelievable. And I thought as great as our midfield played against Chelsea, I thought they played just as poorly against the high press of Esperance. We should have been down 2-0 after 10 minutes.
Easily, and we just bad dispossessions, careless turnovers, bailed out by Hugo, bailed out by the post. Rodriguez clearly could have had that goal. Hugo would have been beat there. We're lucky, but a very uninspiring 10 minutes to open things up. And that would be a tale to come. I mean, when you make as many stops as Hugo Lloris did, while that's a great stat, what that ultimately says is that the forwards of the opposition were completely decimating the back line. And, we didn't have a pretty solid back line there. I mean, we can debate this, obviously. It might be a polarizing statement to make, but I don't think we're that bad of a back line to get shredded as badly as we did, essentially. Yes, you're right. We're lucky to have not been down a 2-0. And, well, we would find the back of the net, Scarf, on a couple of occasions in the first half. But sadly and unfortunately, and whatever other negative connotation synonym you want to throw in there, it wasn't meant to be. The 15th minute, Giroud did score, but Denis was clearly offside. No argument there. And if anybody wants to argue that, well, I would just say watch some more football.
Well, here's the argument. So, Philly, here's the argument to be made, right? If that pass goes all the way through to Denis, and I don't know that it will without Olivier Giroud touching it, that was the big question on the broadcast, right? If Olivier doesn't touch that through ball, that little back flick, which, I mean, I think that's the only reason why that ball got to Denis the way that it did. But if he dummies it and lets it play all the way through to Denis, was Denis onside when that initial pass was made? I think it's a big thing that wound up getting swept under the rug. And I'm not even upset at Olivier Giroud. Olivier Giroud made the play that he's been taught to make for 20 years.
Him and Denis look good. There's good chemistry between those two.
They really did. And I just wonder if he doesn't touch that ball, if it plays all the way through, is Denis onside? And then do we eventually get that goal? And I mean, that could have changed the entire tenor of the game.
It could have, but needless to say, the flag was up, and no one's going to really argue it. Now, in the 17th, maybe 18th minute or so, nice buildup off from the defensive end. And look, Esperance, man, some sweet swashbuckling. Actually, no, this is on LAFC side. We had some sweet swashbuckling movements. And we created a nice opportunity. Denis in the box for David Martinez, who clearly mistimed it. And as Jessica Sharman, one of the broadcasters, depending on what broadcast you were listening to, stated, he crashed right into the post. I bring up Jessica, by the way, because I got to work together with her at TST, which is where we met. Jess Talks Footy on Instagram if you want to follow her. Pretty cool to hear her on the call. She asked me if the way we say Palencia's last name, she wanted to know whether or not we indicate the list, but we obviously didn't. So check out Jess Talks Footy on Instagram. She's going to be an awesome broadcaster. I mean, is up and coming. But Scarf, do we really have to talk about the rest of the game? I mean, look, 28th minute, Martinez did score, but the flag is raised. And at first you thought to yourself, How? You see a brilliant pass into the box. Hollingshead's attempt gets saved. He wasn't offside. And then Martinez comes up with the rebound attempt and gets it past Esperance's keeper, Ben Said, on that near post. But the flag all of a sudden gets raised. And that occurred because of a few plays earlier. It came in from the initial pass to David on that right side from Timothy Tillman. It goes back to Tillman to Ryan, obviously how that happened. But I totally had missed that in the initial buildup of play. I was beyond pissed that we got called offside. But from the replay angle, it looked like he was, and that cost us, unfortunately, the first goal and only goal we would have had in this Club World Cup.
Yeah, Philly, a couple of moments there from David Martinez, right? We're talking about him not getting to the end of a ball. Great dummy run again by Olivier Giroud. He was in the right spot once again. And a perfect pass from Denis Bouanga. And David Martinez, if you are the best prospect in the history of the country of Venezuela, then I need you to put that one in the back of the net. There's no reason why he couldn't get that. For all of you, by the way, hating on Denis Bouanga, just wait for our opinion at the end of the podcast, and you can agree or disagree with us. Stick around. It's not going to come too much later than maybe about 15 minutes from now. But yeah, that initial build-up offside call, I do appreciate the official for keeping the flag down, letting the play develop, and then calling it after the fact. That was exactly what you should have done. And man, he was just a touch offside. We go into the half 0-0. And then something that I don't know how I felt about this, but I actually thought David Martinez played a decent first half. I thought that he contributed to two of our best moments. And so I did not love the fact that Javier Dilrosun made his LAFC debut at the halftime substitution mark, and David Martinez came off. I'll say this. David was weak on the ball when we needed him to be stronger on the ball. I did not like how he was in possession, but I thought that you have to account for him when he is on the pitch as like a guy who can create. And looking at that roster, other than Denis, I think he's the only guy that can create in a moment like that. And so it was a little sad for me. Optimistic, right? Because I don't know Javier Dilrosun from a hole in the wall. But that being said, getting to see him play and all of his 0.03 XG he generated in the second half didn't do it for me. I would have rather ridden with with David Martinez than Javier Dilrosun on this one.
Yeah, this guy, I only bring this up because he seemed to have been in the chat the last time around asking about Newcastle. I don't know who Toonie FC is, but if you want Newcastle news, tune into Everything is Black and White, Pot on the Tide, and True Faith. My man, Newcastle isn't even in this conversation. Who are you and why are you asking the questions? Go away. Actually, no, stick around. I appreciate you being here. Tarek in the chat, welcome back, buddy. Our team, he says, our team lacks international experience and some of the players are pretty old. Considering that you probably have scarves that are older than LAFC, I would agree with you about some of our players being pretty old. Fair, but I will say this, Tarek. Belali is older. Your best player is a lot older than our best player of 3 years, but in footballing years, that might as well be 21 years. Belali older than Denis Bouanga, so just saying that. Anyway, first half stats would end as follows. LAFC would only have 2 total shots, none of them really being on target. We had a big chance. Our passing accuracy, whatever, fine, 91%, nearly doubled what Esperance had as far as possession and pass distribution. But who cares when we go into the half 0-0? It's all philosophy at that point. And so let's begin the second half, which could have been very chaotic and devastating for LAFC as Belali he beats Bouanga in the box. And he probably could have kept going and been far more threatening, but he opts to fall down. Simulation is what the call would be. He would get dinged with a yellow card, which obviously hurts his prospects going into the next match. He could have been far more threatening. Why he decided to do that is beyond me. If there's anything I would say that I didn't like in the match was that simulation. But luckily it went to VAR. And a horrible embellishment, no question about that. You would have had to been high on the cocaine, as Youssef was in 2015 when he got busted and been given a 2-year ban for getting caught on cocaine. But that could have been a really unfortunate start to the second half for LAFC.
By the way, I think the ban was actually extended to like 4 years. I looked into that. That was pretty interesting. The problem with him picking up
Omega threes, Tarek. Omega threes.
the problem with him picking up that yellow card for simulation is that it didn't allow him to try and simulate later on in the 70th minute, because he went down Diego Rossi, right? First thing I thought of in that one there.
Ouch.
Where he goes down and he dives. And I was like,
Diego Rossi didn't dive as bad as that. Or maybe my memory is fuzzy.
Buddy, I think we look at Diego Rossi with some black and gold colored glasses for sure. That being said, the fact that he stayed on his feet, and honestly, I've seen Denis Bouanga do this 15 times for LAFC, where he meanders through the defense there, takes it at the touchline, makes another little touch, and beats the keeper. Youssef Belaili looked just like Denis Bouanga has looked for us several times. And I think because he got that yellow card and realized, okay, I need to stay on my feet when I'm here in the box. I'm not going to get that call. A great initial challenge by Mark Delgado, by the way. I mean, he came flying in from out of nowhere and got nothing but the ball, which was a bit of a surprise. But then Aaron Long, I mean, his footwork, he just got beat going side to side, excuse me. And he goes 5-hole on Ugo. Esperance up 1-0. It was a world-class goal from Belaili and something that we've seen from Denis Bouanga. Unfortunately, it wouldn't happen in this match.
Look, we said that Belaili was the person to watch, and that wasn't the first time that he could have really stuck it to us. And I agree that we dodged a very, very heavy defeat. Mentioned that. I was very cautious when I gave my prediction on the one more sleep. I said if we finish our chances, we would have an opportunity to go 2-1. At the very least, we would have had an opportunity to go 1-1. But the soccer gods thought differently. Now, look, 79th minute, let's move forward. Belaili, a 1-on-1 with Hugo Lloris as LAFC is on their back heels. It turned into a 2-on-1, and obviously Youssef thinking brace at that point. Not sure if he realized that his teammate Jabri on the right side was completely wide open, but Hugo comes out. Youssef to Ganishi. His attempt comes off of the dome of Igor Jesus ever so slightly and bangs off the crossbar. Once again, saved by the woodwork. This could have easily been 3-0 Esperance at this point. But Scarf, as I mentioned, the football gods would throw us a lifeline. I don't know if there's any other moments prior to that you want to discuss. But Marlon draws a foul in the box. He gets his foot smashed by what clearly was a frustrated Gunishi. I didn't even catch it at that time, but when you saw the VAR, no play on the ball, and that looked like it might have hurt a little bit, just a straight shot at his foot. Obviously nothing malicious, but no play on the ball. We have Denny the Destroyer, Dynamite Denny. Denny, who prior to this season was automatic from 11 meters, 12 yards out, but he gets denied by Esperance's keeper, Ben Said, and the football gods giveth and the football gods taketh. And at that point, we really deserve an L, and still we could have ended up conceding another one later on, moments after.
I mean, look, let's back up for a second here. I don't think you're giving Igor Jesus enough credit on that incredible play.
What do you mean? It grazed off his dome. He made the play.
Igor made the play of the day for LAFC because if he doesn't save that ball, we're down 2-0. Look, we had to throw bodies forward, right? So of course we're going to get caught in a counter, and it's Belaili. It's always seemed to be Belaili in this one. But the way that Igor Jesus, what I have said over and over and over again about this kid, Igor Jesus, is that no moment seems to be too big for him. Now, I don't think he played his best match in this one. I don't think our midfield as a whole played their best match in this one. But I think the way that Igor Jesus plays over 90 minutes in the midfield kind of reminds me of the way that Denis Bouanga plays on the front line over 90 minutes, where you know you are always going to get his best effort. I know that Igor Jesus is young and he is still coming into his own, but there are so many good things.
22 years young.
So many good things that he does that does not make the back of the top soccer card, does not make the stat sheet. You just have to watch him play for 90 minutes and see the incredible talent that Igor Jesus has. I think he is an incredible midfielder who is going to go somewhere and make a lot of money in Europe someday. And I think we are all going to be incredibly lucky and sad to say that we had Igor Jesus, but he moved on. Olivier Giroud, by the way, comes out in the 88th minute. And I thought he got the start because the thing that I was talking about, Philly, on One More Sleep is that Flamengo seemed to find an opening with Esperance in that they showed they were susceptible to crosses and set pieces. And I think anytime you've got Olivier Giroud, we obviously know what Olivier Giroud's strength is, finding a ball on a cross, on a header, on a set piece, something like that. And we just weren't able to do it. But I don't think Olivier played particularly poorly. I think he probably had one of his better games in black and gold. He did win 3 of his 4 duels, including both of his aerials. So he was strong on the ball when he needed to be. And that's something that we've been seeing a little bit more of from Olivier Giroud. But again, not much magic left in those boots there for Olivier. We got very, very lucky, Philly, that Marlon got his foot stomped on. And unfortunately, Denis misses the penalty shot. And you and I both, all of a sudden, when we saw on Twitter all the crap that Denis Bouanga was getting for missing this penalty shot, I don't see how, and I know there are people in the chat who completely disagree with us about Denis Bouanga, and it blows me away. If you look at our last 10 or 15 matches, all competitions, find me somebody else who generates the chances that Denis Bouanga generates. You and I, Philly, have said that there have been matches where Denis could have had 4, 5, 6 goals in a match because of the way that he plays. Has there been any other player for LAFC over those 15 matches total who would have had 4, 5, or 6 goals? Absolutely not.
Oh, I thought you had a little bit more on that, so that's why I paused for a second.
No,
It's not just the 15 matches, Scarf. It goes back to when he became part of this team in August of 2022. The guy has 130 games of effort, defenders. The guy made so many magical moments for us. And yes, I know we live in a results now world, but he still created opportunities. He still kept going. He still played with his foot on the pedal. You want somebody who bleeds for the crest? That man has bled for the crest all 130 occasions that he's put it on. 81 goals in all competitions in that time. And you want to poop on him now? Yes, I will say he's got a case of the yips this season when it comes into taking penalty kicks, because he really was automatic prior to this season. And now it looks like he's second guessing himself with the hesitations. Not sure if just it kind of sunk in to where he remembers the first time he got picked off earlier in the season. But this man is the epitome of what you'd want out of a player. Somebody who continues to go. Remember when he came in off of a flight from playing with Gabon, he came in because he wanted to play. He could have easily sat out. Are you holding your ear for a reason, or am I being too loud? Can you not hear me?
No, I had a.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't know if you lost the volume on me. The guy came into the game and had a hunger to play, and what I think he scored in that matchup. Is that not the kind of player that you want? That's the kind of player that I will go to war with and defend time and time again. And as a striker, while if you miss 99% of your attempts, nobody will think or say anything otherwise, but they'll remember the one time you scored. And for some reason, that philosophy just doesn't seem to be the case with Denny. The only player that ever really is worth a damn in every single game and people want to poop on him, I'm sorry, man. This guy is the best player that LAFC has ever had. I know people are going to look at me and go, Philly, well, what about Carlos Vela? And I'm going to say, what about him? Denis Bouanga in one game showed more heart than Carlos Vela did for a number of years. And I love Carlos Vela. I absolutely love Carlos Vela. But Denis Bouanga's my guy. And as of this far, the greatest player to have ever put on a black and gold kit, or in yesterday's case, a white one with a collar.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that might be where our paths diverge a little bit. I think prime Carlos Vela, when we had him 18, 19, I don't think MLS has seen many players like Carlos Vela in their 30-year history. I mean, his number of goal contributions and the number of matches those big moments. And there's nothing like knowing it's Mariano Rivera knowing he's going to throw the cutter, right? It's Carlos Vela switching that ball over to his left foot and doing some amazing things with it. I don't think there was ever a buzz like there was when Carlos was alone, top of the box, 1v1 with a defender, and you just knew what was going to happen. But I do agree that Denis Bouanga is a player who I think at this point, we ask him to do everything.
Everything.
And if we're mad at him one game for passing too much and then mad at him another game for shooting too much, all I got to say is look around and ask who's helping.
Yes.
I don't know. This club, by the way, if we enter the Club World Cup with Matty Bogusz, if we enter the Club World Cup with Kike Oliveira, which by the way, Kike, how'd that move go, bud? How's your season going there, Kike? The grass, by the way, not so much greener on the side that you're in. I'm super bummed that you did what you did, Kike, because we loved you right up until we didn't. But
persona non grata in LA right now, Kike.
No, 100%. But Philly, do you imagine what this club would be like if? And now look, Timothy Tillman's played great last match against Chelsea and several other matches. But you put in a Matty Bogusz on one side, you put in the likes of a Kike Oliveira, someone who was a dynamic goal scorer for us. Now we have guys who Denis knows can put the ball in the back of the net. But I don't think we have those guys on a consistent basis. Just look at our numbers. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. You mentioned it, by the way, too. Hugo Lloris saves our butt once again, keeping it 1-0 in the 11th minute with another 1v1 save. I mean, Hugo just had a hell of a match. I don't think nobody left this match disappointed in Hugo, except maybe Hugo. I think Hugo might be the most disappointed in himself after this one. Because he might be
especially with the way that goal went through. I mean, he just too many, kind of like the reverse of what I said about Danny. Being a goalkeeper, you can make 99 saves, but you miss the one, and then all of a sudden you're considered you're gross. People want to throw the kitchen sink at you. But funny enough, man, like everything seems to have worked the reverse. Whereas everybody's like blaming Denis, nobody blaming Hugo. And you shouldn't blame Hugo, and nor should you blame Denis. You don't have options. David Martinez, when he gets in his head, you have to sub him out. Nathan Ordaz, I like him and I love him, but he wasn't a factor because he couldn't be a factor based on what he sustained, the concussion against Chelsea. Jeremy Ebobisse, honestly, I would have loved to have seen a bit more out of him during these past couple of games. Jeremy Ebobisse was a certified LA killer at some point within his career. Thus far, largely ineffective. Olivier Giroud, we've already we've written a book about the number of things we've said about him. So yes, Denis, the only person that actually creates opportunities, and he has the green light to do so, defenders. I mean, you say that he's selfish, but clearly he has the blessing from the coaching staff to do what it is that he can and create opportunities and fire at will. And that's what he does because the team needs and depends on him because nobody else can put it through the back of the net as often or as easily as Denis can.
I would just like to point out that the Mamelodi Sundowns have scored 3 goals against Borussia Dortmund.
You got to be kidding me, really?
Well, one of them was for Borussia Dortmund. So they've still scored 2 against Dortmund that count. They're losing
4-2.
They're losing 4-2. But by the way, those guys, it's just awesome, man. Like they've got Job Bellingham playing for Borussia Dortmund right now. Job, according to the Google that I have here. Does Jude Bellingham have a brother named Job?
Yes, he does.
Okay, so he's playing right now. The only Job I ever knew was on Arrested Development. But that being said,
well, we knew a Jabba at one point.
we did. Job Bellingham has scored. That kind of gives you the lineup that they're playing against Mamelodi Sundowns. But they've scored twice.
I'm surprised just hearing about him now. The guy had a pretty stellar time at Sunderland, and obviously where he started out at Birmingham City.
I'm watching Mamelodi Sundowns outshoot Dortmund 14-6 right now, and dude, I love it. They're currently second. Obviously, they're the only team that's played 2 games in their group right now. But Fluminense and Ulsan are both in that bracket. How amazing would it be if the Mamelodi Sundowns come out of this? Anyways, not going to get too far
Like a
away.
Nickelodeon team. No, no.
Yeah, right. Look, you mentioned it. LAFC and Seattle Sounders, first two teams to crash out, and we have yet to score a goal. Sounders have won in each of their two games, so we don't. Inter Miami maybe moving on, right, with a win and a draw. They look great in this. Turns out they've got some guys who have been there before. And LAFC travels to the House of the Mouse Tuesday, June 24th, 6 p.m. I am terrified of this match. Terrified. Because if Flamengo come out and decide to make a statement against an LAFC team that knows they're already eliminated, who might not be playing with much to play for, who might be playing with a lineup full of guys who play maybe 45 minutes and then come out at the half, this could go south quickly if Flamengo brings their best effort and we play the way we did against Esperance. If we play the way we did against Chelsea, if we show some heart, and if we get lucky that Flamengo maybe doesn't play everybody, who knows? We might even score, Philly.
Look, if we really leave this Club World Cup without any goals, I'm going to be not disappointed. I'm going to be angry and disgusted. How to come out of 3 games and not score any goals would be the most sickening thing. And then the hangover after that would be even worse because you go from like this stage to having to, revamp your MLS season. I'm not going to look for like wins right out of the gate just because of the letdown that's occurred these past couple of matches. But it could go either side. As I mentioned at the top of this podcast, Flamengo could just use different personnel, keep their foot off the brakes because they're in and secured. And who knows, maybe at that point we are hungry enough to walk out, at least with our heads held up as high as we can, defeating a team that can honestly make it to the semifinals, if not to the finals of this tournament. So I don't know what to think. We obviously have to do a one more sleep, and I got to give myself a day or so to reacclimate, reassess everything, but very disappointing performance on such a big stage where we wanted to impress as best as we can, and honestly only outclassed the team that did far worse than us.
And by the way, shout out to our good buddy Dario, if you ever see him in Founders Club, is often the guy wearing the Flamengo gear. He is a massive Flamengo fan, sits right behind us in Founders Club.
Oftentimes the most potty mouth in Founders too.
Oh, 100%. But that being said, his kid loves LAFC, so he supports the heck out of LAFC. But he is, and always will be a diehard Flamengo fan. He'll be traveling to the match, so it'll be really interesting to see what that looks like. And one last thing I want to say. First of all, Tarek, thank you for coming back into the chat after joining us for one more sleep. I just have to say, like you said it before, Philly, the traveling support for Esperance was unbelievable. Not to take anything away from, obviously, the traveling support of LAFC, which I know was pretty solid in the match for a competition like this. But I mean, I thought initially, Philly, maybe it's because they want to get away from the weather. It was 92 degrees in Tunis, Tunisia yesterday. And I look and it's 91 degrees in Nashville today. So it's not like they were trying to escape the heat. They travel because they love this club. And it was so amazing to see. And between Philly and I'm the neophyte when it comes to international soccer. I've said it on this pod many, many times. So to be introduced not just to a team like ES Tunis, Esperance de Sportive or Sportive de Tunis, to be introduced to a fan base that bleeds it the way that their fan base does. I got to give them love. I got to give them a shout out. It was incredible to watch the Esperance fans really support their club through and through.
I couldn't agree more. We're talking what, an 11-hour flight to Nashville, probably a connecting flight. I don't know how many direct flights from Tunisia to Tennessee there really are, and if there are many, then wow, that's news to me. But yes, great traveling support, and shout out. Let's tip our hats off to the traveling support that LAFC had. Let's not forget that we came in late to this tournament. We would have certainly had a completely different showing if we had a little more time to prepare for things. But shout out to everybody who was at the game, Ruben in particular, who was there. Hope you enjoyed Nash Vegas as much as you did. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much more to say about things. We've already talked about disappointment. We've already talked about a lot of things. We talked about how Hugo stood on his head, and Denny not necessarily the one to be blamed because there's 10 other players on the pitch. The teacher raising his hand. This is an interesting story. Yeah, well, yes.
There is not a flight from Tunis to Nashville that doesn't include 2, at least, layovers. 2. You can't get there with 1 stop. You got to get there with 2. This is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Lunch Special Gio says condolences to those who made the trip to watch that shite show. My man, it's never a bad thing to take a trip to anywhere outside of your hometown. In particular, town is fun as Nashville. And while it sucks to spend money and see your team lose, that's always the gamble that one takes when making that decision anyway. And you mentioned that you don't have the optimism about us scoring against Flamengo. I guess I got to ask, did you have the optimism against Chelsea? Did you have the optimism against Esperance? Did the optimism all of a sudden fade? I don't know. And either way, I wouldn't blame you. But I do think that we are going to at least get 1 goal in this freaking tournament. At least 1. That is my only glass half full perspective talking about this match in this Club World Cup.
And I'll say one other thing. First of all, shout out to our buddy Chris Lafferty, who, in no surprise, is running a race today. He's doing the
he started at 2 a.m.
Yeah, the black and gold, the 32:52 run. It's incredible. Whatever player scores.
That. LAFC Wolf, that.
Yes.
Sorry.
Whatever player scores, we're going to donate that dollar amount with their jersey number to the Mo Facio Foundation, Mo Facio Fund. Please, it would be really cool if we could all get together as defenders and for 1 goal, if we score a goal against Flamengo, if we score a goal, whatever player's jersey number that is, and I'm hoping it's Denis Bouanga, but whoever it is, I'm going to donate that dollar amount to the Mo Facio Field Fund, and it would be really cool to see how many defenders of the bank listeners, how many supporters, how many of the millions
and millions
match us in that cool endeavor. So at least
now, I appreciate that, but perhaps we split it because the proceeds that Lafferty's trying to raise are also going to fund Jeremy Abobasi's philanthropic scenario. So while we talk about the Mo Facio futsal court, and yes, we are going to continue to do stuff with that, let's consider Jeremy Abobasi's foundation as well.
Okay. You can donate to that one. I'll donate to this, and we'll see.
So what you're saying, you don't love Jeremy Abobasi?
I don't love Jeremy Abobasi as much as I love Mo Facio.
Fair. Oh, all right. You know what? That's when you put it that way, you win, Scarf.
I'll say that. All right, Philly, we got through it. Everybody in the chat got through it. Now we got a couple of days to hope we score a goal against a team that, by the way, 3 of the 12 pundits that I read articles
He does, Ruben. He does. He's going to be happy if Brian makes his way back to BMO.
Oh, my God, if we bring him back. 3 of the 12 pundits that I read picked Flamengo to go to the final match of the Club World Cup.
Yeah, they're a damn good team, man. Damn good team.
They've scored more goals than any other team in the history of professional top-flight soccer, by the way. 13,000 goals in their history. It's unbelievable. We'll talk more about that on One More Sleep. Philly, it's been a fun one, brother.
Has it?
No.
Okay, because I didn't have too much fun.
No,
it was fun to just talk and be therapeutic, but I wouldn't call this fun.
But we got to do it together. Our buddy Ruben in the chat reminds you all, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And with that, you guys know how we like to end each and every one of these things. Bye-bye. Philly's drinking.